Happy New Year from everybody here at my podcast, the Tim Anderson Podcast. Hope you're going to have a lovely 2022. It can only get better from here, right? I know I said that 12 months ago, but it can only get better from here, right? We'll go with it. Tonight, we talk football. Zach and Ryan want to ring in the new year by chatting a little bit about John Madden. We got to touch on that. Ode to the big guy. Certainly a cornerstone of our youth. We'll get into him tonight and talk about his legacy in the NFL. We'll do some New Year's resolutions, both football-related and otherwise, and then we'll examine the finalists for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Some worthy candidates, some candidates I'm not so sure about. I'm interested to hear what Zach and Ryan think. And also, we'll get an update from them because they're talking a harebrained idea of maybe going and sitting in Lambeau in freezing cold temps to watch the Vikes and the Packers. We'll see if that plays out. All of that, plus more, tonight on the pod.
Welcome back. Your dreams were your ticket out.
Hey! Happy New Year. It's the Tim Anderson Podcast. I'm Tim. That's my buddy Ryan over there. Rhino, hello to you. Hope you had a great holiday.
Oh, it was a holiday.
Holiday celebrate, as Madonna once said. And then on the other side, the very hoarse. But you know what? He's here to battle and at least just say hi. To wish all the... he's real gutty effort as he's trying to secure Packers tickets for this Sunday. But he's got no voice tonight, so we just wanted to bring him in for a quick second and say hello. Zach, how you doing, bud?
I've felt better. Like we said a few minutes ago, I probably sound a lot worse than I feel, but it hasn't been great today.
If you stay right at that volume, it's not the worst sounding thing in the world. When you first came on this podcast, it sounded like you had one of them voice modulators that, people do when they want to hide their voice for the news segments. They're like, and then after that, I went to his office. And it's like, well, thank you for that info. So it's good to have you here. Zach will probably be in for just a few minutes, and then we're going to let him head out or whatever, check his voice. He'll be in and out of this podcast tonight, but he, of course, had to be here, of course. Last podcast of 2021. And we've got big news here at the pod, and we wanted to make sure that we talked about it right away. We were going to talk about New Year's resolutions, and we're going to get to some of that stuff later on in the pod and get into all the football stuff. But we got to start with the big story that broke Tuesday night. I was recovering from my booster, which absolutely buried my ass on Tuesday night, and so I slept through most of the breaking news on that.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. You're welcome, and also with you. I slept right through it. I woke up to the news at like 9, 10 o'clock, and you guys had already gone through a whole bunch of stuff on the text stream that we have. Which, by the way, we should just send out. People should just read our stuff because it's way better than what's on Twitter. But the passing of the great John Madden, 85. Just 3 days after this big Tom Rinaldi documentary came out on Christmas Day with him in it and an active role in it, which is, he didn't seem to be, he seemed like himself. I mean, obviously a few years older, but seemed like himself. And 3 days later, obviously, sadly, passing away. So, unexpectedly, they say, at age 85, which I don't know how you can say that at 85, but in that case, yes, that's the case. So we're all a little bit surprised by it. We've had a couple of days to chew on it. I think the more you think about it, his impact is huge. Zach, I'll give you a chance here to speak here in case you want to get in quick and get out. You and I are the same age. We only know Madden first as a broadcaster and then playing his video games, but obviously a great coach as well, 10-year resume that's pretty darn good. Your thoughts on Madden?
I think that as a coach and a contributor and a broadcaster, he's probably a Hall of Famer as all three. Mm-hmm. So a tremendous loss. We mentioned earlier, it really opened up. There's a ton of us that understand some of that game theory and time management way better than now because we've had the opportunity to simulate 1,000 games in our life. And because of that, we all understand the clock management better than Zim, who, by the way, said he had no clue what the video game was this week.
No, come on. He didn't say that.
Yeah, he said he had no idea about.
See, that guy's such a fraud. He's so full of shit. You try to make it sound like he's never, ever once walked in a Walmart, never once checked the game section. Give me a goddamn break. He doesn't have any children. Whatever. Sorry, I get upset when I hear Bell. I hear guys like that. Saban says that stuff too, where he's like, I didn't even know that existed. Yeah, bullshit. You read everything that's ever said about you. Of course you know.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of their mystique. So,
yeah.
But anyways, I just wanted to chime in at the start.
Yeah, you're welcome to obviously.
There for a while,
you're welcome to hang in, and if you got something to say, you just unmute and pop on, and we'll let you in. Ryan, you caught his tail end of his broadcasting career. You really, though, are a Madden gamer. So your thoughts on Madden's legacy and kind of your impressions.
Well, I mean, I don't know that I would have gotten into football quite as much as I did and have if it wasn't for Madden football, right? The first game I played was Madden 97, and I was 4 years old and playing Madden 97, and I all I did was throw it deep. Like that's all you knew how to do, right? It's like the first steps you take is, how can I score as quickly as possible? And from there, the game theory develops, right?
Right.
And really, like Zach said, as a coach, someone who's, I've been coaching something. It started with football, but I've been coaching something since I was 15, right? So without that game, without the legacy of teaching young people with an interest in football how the game works and what the theory of the game is and when to call timeouts and what plays to call in certain situations, like it all comes down to Madden, right? We've all run, like Zach was saying this before the podcast, we've all run thousands of simulations of football games in our lifetimes, right? Coaches who don't play the games, I mean, they're old-fashioned sometimes. I don't even know if the younger coaches now are playing Madden. The players certainly are. But, realistically, you're looking at, just small lessons in football every single time you pick up a controller and you just start thinking about the game. So I know that if it's 3rd and 1 in plus territory, throw it deep and take the shot, and then you've got one more play, you're going to go for it anyway, right? Depending on the situation. But these are things that you wouldn't think about if you weren't playing the game. And that all comes down to Madden, and that was his original intention, was to teach people about football and what the game was and how to get into the game and the strategy of the game when he paired up with EA. And it's a huge mark in my life. But I mean, more than that, I mean, the last game that he called was that Super Bowl that you and I were talking about.
Pittsburgh, Arizona, right? Yeah.
Yeah. That game is one of the best games I've ever watched. It was phenomenal, right? I mean, I grew up watching, the first game I remember was that Dallas Cowboys Vikings Thanksgiving game in '98.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I was 5. I was just starting to watch football. I had my first Madden game that year. I was playing football or watching football on TV. I was talking about playing it with my dad. Like we got like the pads set, and it was all around Madden.
Yeah. So
I mean, he's got to be, in my mind, he's got to be on the Rushmore.
Oh, 100%.
Right? If we're talking about the four most influential names in the NFL in football, John Madden's got to be close to the top of that list.
Without question. We'll talk about that in a second because we've kind of bantered around this a little bit as far as finding names. But yeah, you just think of anybody, if you're of a certain age, whether you're my age, Zach's age, we're about the same, around 40, or younger, maybe even a pinch older, in the mid 40s. Like, there are very distinct times in your life where Madden was a critical part of your friend group, was a critical part of, your Saturday nights, in high school, things like that. And I also just think about, like, what football games were before Madden came along. And that was, we all have a little bit of a soft spot in our heart for Tecmo Super Bowl, and we do. I do. I know Zach does. But like Madden's video game was just a game changer. Like, he brought things to the game, having, I think really his game was the first game that had announcers, really. They worked him and Summerall in on Super Nintendos and Segas, for like Madden 94 and 5, and started to work in different things every year as far as franchise modes and simulations and being your own GM and different stuff like that, which I thought was like really cutting edge stuff. And What's coming, it was interesting as I read more about this, is that Madden didn't buy stock in EA at the time. In 1988, they said, hey, you can get in and do this. He's like, nah, I'm not giving you my money. Sorry. Kind of stingy. And so he really wasn't in getting the money that EA was making, but good for EA. They gave him a contract in 2005. They gave him $150 million and then gave him an annual perpetuity to use his likeness and image in perpetuity. And they gave him a cut of the sales every year in perpetuity as well. So, like, family's set for life off this game. Obviously, they were set anyway, but now really set. And that's a move EA didn't have to do, and they did it. And I think it was one of the cooler things I had read in the last few days, for sure. But those games were revolutionary because they changed the angle too, right, Ryan? Like, those early Tecmo Super Bowl games were being looked at from like a TV view, and then they flipped it around and gave us like the whole field, like, which was a big thing that Madden talked about a lot as a broadcaster as well, being able to see the field.
Right. Well, it taught you in a very basic way, right? There's a lot of complications and differences in a real game, but in a very basic way, it taught you how to recognize certain coverages, how to count the load on each side of the ball, who's standing where's your, who's the Mike linebacker, can I read a blitz, and where's the blitz coming from? How do we shift the offensive line to pick up a blitz? And then on the defensive side of the ball, how do we shift the lineups? How do we move? Where do we put our linebackers? Do we come out in nickel or dime, or do we come out in base, right? What's the personnel? And now a lot of that stuff's done for you, but if you really wanted to learn, you could get into the theory of what personnel package am I going to bring in certain situations, right? And there's a lot of that in Madden. It got really in depth.
Too in depth for me. I got to tell you, I tried to play a couple from like my Madden Madden 20 or something like that, and I'm like, man, this game has passed me by. It is not the game I remember playing in 2001 and 2 and 3.
Well, and if you're looking at the franchise strategy of it, not just the in the game on the gridiron type of play stuff. Now we're talking about how do we evaluate talent? What kind of players fit what kind of system?
Right.
What kind of what type of personality traits do we look for in a player? What do you prioritize as far as physical athletic traits and size traits, right? At certain positions. What is good? What isn't good? What can you get over? These are all evaluation things that players are learning every time they pick up franchise mode.
And as a broadcaster, for me, every big game was Matt, because he always did NFC games, until he switched over to Monday Night Football and Sunday Night Football. He just did NFC games with Summerall. And my thought was, when the Vikings stunk, we obviously never saw Madden and Summerall. But, man, when we got good and we started seeing a lot of Madden and Summerall, like, we always knew it was a big game. And that, I think, is another part of his legacy because, yeah, now it's sort of Aikman and Buck, but yes and no. I mean, some people hate Joe Buck and hate Troy Aikman. I don't think, even if people hated Madden, they recognized when Madden got the game that it was a big game, that you had the marquee game of the week. And that's kind of cool. That's kind of a cool legacy.
Well, right now it feels like it's kind of split, right? It might be Buck and Aikman, or it might be Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth,
right?
Or it might be Jim Nantz and Tony Romo. Everybody's got an A crew, right? But back then there really wasn't an A crew that could match Summerall and Madden. I can't even think of who the number 2 guys would have been on any network.
Yeah, I'm certainly struggling to remember who the A guy. I mean, I know it was Nance and Sims or Gumbel and Sims for a while on CBS, but on NBC, yeah, it's Enberg and I know it was Enberg, but I don't know who else it would have been. But bottom line is nobody could compare to Summerall and Madden. They were incredible, and I think what you liked was, although there's a place for Summerall, and people really love the minimalistic play-by-play of Pat Summerall. I'm not a huge fan of it. It's just not me, but there's a place for it. It's good. And they worked well together. But I think what made Madden great was that he was this sort of unpolished, unvarnished thing. And I find that I gravitate to that as a guy who loves broadcasting and is fascinated by it. I like unpolished gems. Madden was that. Romo was that, and that's why I kind of like Tony Romo. It's why I like Charles Barkley. I like the guys that just don't feel polished, and maybe that's why Aikman, as much as I like him, doesn't grow on me the way that Madden did.
Sure, well, and I'm, I know that I'm sometimes in the minority on this, depending on who I'm talking to. I like Gus Johnson for that reason.
Yeah. Well, Gus, he's all over the place. I mean, he's psychotic.
Right. Well, he's wild, but that to me makes a game fun.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think about the calls that he had, and they were wild, but you couldn't match Madden with the telestrator. They're still great today. You can go back and watch those clips, and they're still funny.
There is some good stuff there, and I think the all Madden stuff, hearing the players talk about what it meant to be an all Madden player, was better than being a Pro Bowler. Like, there were guys like Shannon Sharp, I think, who talked about it this week, that said, like, you felt like you had respect if you were an all Madden guy, because it meant that you were tough, it meant that you were physical, it meant that you were effective at what you did. It said more than just stats. And I think that's why that's why that award stuck out. So Madden, huge influence. I totally agree. Mount Rushmore. I didn't think about Mount Rushmore of football until what happened with this Tuesday with Madden. Mount Rushmore of football, I agree with you. I think he's on it. I think you can't tell. Zach has this great line about how can you tell the story of the game without him? And you can't. You can't without Madden, because he's the one piece that connects like 4 generations of football fans. And he's a brand. Like, Jordan's a brand. Like, there are kids who never saw Jordan play basketball who know who Jordan is because he's a brand. Just like Madden. There's a ton of kids that have no idea that he coached the Raiders, but they know who he is because they play his video game.
Right.
There's not a lot of people who can say that. So he's on the Mount Rushmore. Lombardi's on the Mount Rushmore. Has to be, right? His name's on the trophy.
I think for me, a Mount Rushmore in football is so tough because there are so many people who the game would not be where it is without them.
Right.
Right? And I kind of look at it by era. The game wouldn't be where it is without Curly Lambeau.
Oh, now you got Zach going. Now he's gonna come in here, and he's gonna all of a sudden he's gonna have a voice. He's gonna sing in baritone here.
The game wouldn't be where it is without George Halas. The game wouldn't be where it is without Al Davis. Yeah. The game wouldn't be where it is without Lamar Hunt. I mean, go down the list, right?
But just like with
so many guys who it just wouldn't be.
That's true, but we don't have a Mount Rushmore. We don't have 10 Mount Rushmores for presidents, right? We kind of drew the line at Teddy Roosevelt. Zach just chimes in with a Red McCombs. He's texting into the show here, so thanks for that. We definitely can't tell the story of the Vikings without Red McCombs. But, look, we decided this is Mount Rushmore. These are the 4. So that leaves off JFK. That leaves off, FDR. That leaves off some presidents, for better or for worse.
But there are some presidents that you could tell the story of the nation without them.
Yeah, Hoover,
right?
Woodrow Wilson.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. Jimmy Carter. Yes, there's a million of them.
And again, a Mount
Joe
Rushmore
Biden, perhaps,
is limited by its time, right?
Yes,
it's limited by its time.
Yes, it is.
If you looked at the first 150 years of the United States, yeah, sure. I mean, Teddy Roosevelt, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln probably makes some sense. But you're missing the FDRs and you're missing the JFKs because they weren't established yet. Right?
Yeah, it's true.
But I would argue...
But we can't keep making more Mount Rushmores to accommodate, is what my point is.
Well, look, that would get canceled in a hurry because of the American stuff. But the point that I'm trying to make... is that you can't limit yourself to just 4 in the NFL. In my opinion, you have to go by era because it's every era has those pillars, those guys, right?
See, I think
sometimes they're players, but most times they're not.
See, I think what we have to do, and this is with all due respect to the Bronco Nagurskis and the folks who played 1950 and before, or 55 and before, with all due respect. But here's the bottom line. If you played without a face mask, you don't... Sorry, we can't include you. It's a totally different game that you played. It doesn't count. If you played with leather helmets, I got to throw you out. Sorry, I can't include you. You're not on the list, can't be in Mount Rushmore because you're not part of the modern game. The game is just... It's a different animal then. It's the same thing with... I was just trying to think of like when the game when it plays different. It's kind of like George Mikan with like the Minneapolis Lakers. Like, yes, they're important. Yes, they're foundational, but it's not even the same game. I mean, there's a 3-point line now. There's a shot clock. The game isn't the same. It's fundamentally different. That's the difference between like baseball and football, basketball, and the other sports. In baseball, I think you can have a Mount Rushmore. And the Mount Rushmore is pretty clear, right? Like, it's definitely Ruth. It's definitely Mays. Definitely Hank Aaron, and probably Jackie Robinson. And maybe...
I don't know enough to talk about that.
But I'm saying that stops right there. That's it. That's the list. Like, maybe Ted Williams, maybe Lou Gehrig. Like, there's 7 names for the potential 4 in Mount Rushmore, and that's it. Nobody else gets to get on the list. Everybody else is off. NFL is not that way. But I do think we have to agree on 4 names. If we have to say 4 for the NFL being what it is, like the founding fathers of this league, who are the 4? We got Madden, and we agree on Madden and Lombardi.
Yeah.
We agree on Madden and Lombardi. Where else do we go?
I think that I think your point about Pete Rozelle before the podcast was pretty good.
Yes. I think I have Pete Rozelle as 3.
Rozelle was probably the one who grew the league into an empire, right?
Yep.
And I think that's probably really important. Beyond that, there's a number of names we could throw out. I said Lamar Hunt.
Yeah, Lamar Hunt
right?
makes some sense, sure.
Lamar Hunt's really, really important. I think Al Davis is incredibly important.
Al Davis is he's a legend in the league. But Al Davis has been pretty detrimental to the league too, right? He's kind of a royal pain in the ass. He's moving teams left and right.
They wouldn't have had the AFL without Al Davis.
No, that's true. Al Davis is part of the merger. You're right, because he sued Rozelle like 1,000 times.
Yeah, they were at odds.
Zach chimed in with that one, by the way. Zach's a big Al Davis guy, just like you are, Rhino.
I think that you can't tell the story of the league without Al Davis.
I agree with you 100% on that. You can't tell the story of that. You can't tell the story. I go to... So the 4th has been a wild card for me. It's like, do we go player there or do we stay with coach administrator? And like, there's a little part of me that's like, I think it's Bill Walsh.
Yeah,
there's a little
Bill Walsh is definitely one of those.
Because in the only reason I would put him over a guy like Don Shula or over some of those guys is like Walsh's offense was game changing. Like, and the coaching tree is like the league is a Bill Walsh league. Like going forward, you think of all the different branches of the Bill Walsh tree as far as the different coaches, right? You get Mike Shanahan, now you get Kyle Shanahan. You had Mike Holmgren, and from Mike Holmgren, you get Mariucci, Andy Reid, John Gruden, and it just continues to spike off in all of those different directions, right? You get Dennis Green, and from Dennis Green, you get Brian Billick. You get, all these different permutations or whatever of this particular West Coast offense, and it all starts with Walsh.
Yeah, I mean the brothers Harbaugh, even the Shermers. I mean there's all kinds of people that come off of that tree. I definitely agree. I also think that if we're looking at him versus someone like Don Shula was a great coach, and if we're just talking coaches, you almost have to put Don Shula on the Rushmore. If we were doing a coach's Mount Rushmore. Right. If it's just coaches, you have to put...
I don't even know if Madden's on the coach Mount Rushmore. Like, I don't think he's on the coach Mount Rushmore, but I think he's on the grand scheme Mount Rushmore. That's why I'm saying we have to think grand scheme totality.
That's kind of what I'm saying is nothing against Don Shula, but he didn't change the game.
No, I don't think so.
Right? Don Shula was great in the game, but he didn't change it.
No.
And you know what? I hate to say this. You could make the same argument for Bill Belichick.
I don't know about that.
Is there anything that we're going to look back on in 50 years and say, we have to tell Belichick in the history of the league, right? Just like we have to with Shula.
Right.
Belichick is on the Mount Rushmore for coaches. He's probably number 1 all time. But is he Bill Walsh? Right? Does he have that revolutionary sort of bend that Walsh has? And I don't think he does. Look, it's taking nothing away from Belichick, right? A ton of championships, greatest coach of all time. He's going to end up being the winningest coach of all time, and when it's all said and done, nothing against Bill Belichick, but he's not revolutionary.
That's a good conversation to have. That is a good conversation to have. So I guess I would be, if I was thinking grand scheme Mount Rushmore, I mean, I think you can make a case for Al Davis. You can make a case for Lamar Hunt. I think I'm going to go Bill Walsh as my fourth guy. Just for right. That's all subject to debate. Certainly when Zach has a voice, he's welcome to come back and chime on this on his element of this too. I think it's a good talker. And I think maybe in the offseason we have to get together and do a players Mount Rushmore pod. And you're saying we almost need a Mount Rushmore at every position, which meant we would had 40 Mount Rushmores. Which I don't know how I would do with that, but
a Mount Rushmore might be less effective than something like, say, I don't know, just throwing an idea out here, like a players March Madness bracket with different eras as the brackets. I'm just throwing something out.
This might be something to talk about, right?
The Rushmore is tough to do.
A Mount Rushmore is tough to do because you have to really decide, like, who are the guys that make the league what it is. And I don't know. But Madden, ode to you, my friend. Just an incredible run, an incredible career. I still have yet to eat a turducken. I feel like Ryan has had a turducken. Have you had a turducken?
Not had a turducken. I have long wanted to try one.
And it's all because of Madden, too, by the way. Madden makes turducken a thing.
Yeah, that's true.
And you want a turducken now.
John Madden's kind of synonymous with Thanksgiving in a lot of ways.
Totally is. Yes, he's part of the soundtrack of your Thanksgivings. And some would argue your Thanksgivings haven't been the same.
That's true. I would agree. I mean, the turducken is something that my family has joked about getting for years.
One of my favorite things was Randy Moss ripping a giant leg off the turducken and saluting Summerall and Madden in '98. He was all about having that turducken.
Yeah,
I want a turducken.
I mean, it's just what a legacy that he leaves behind.
Good stuff.
I mean, it's huge for the game. There's not another one like him. We're gonna miss him for sure.
Zero. Like Romo, I think is the closest thing. This kind of unpolished, just fan of the game, loves the game, can see it from all the angles.
Talking announcers, I'd agree with you.
Yeah, Romo seems like the only thing close to John Madden.
I just don't think that there's not another person who's going to be able to break down the kinds of barriers he broke down.
100%. How about the fact that he didn't fly? That's my favorite thing about him is that first he did trains and then he came up with the Madden Cruiser. Like, just cruising around. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's a good way to travel. It's very COVID friendly.
Yeah, not that we care about that right now, right?
Well, come on. We could have a separate pod about that. There's no. That's all stuff we can talk about again. That's fine. Anyway, let's keep it going. What else we got? Oh, yeah, that's right. Ryan, I was going to ask you this, and Zach, if you're still listening, you can chime in too if you have an opinion on it. But the Hall of Fame finalists were announced today. The 15 finalists that are up for a Hall of Fame consideration. I'm curious to know what you think of it as I try to find all my screenshots, which right now I cannot seem to find. I will get to it because I know I have it.
I've got them up here.
So
I had the page waiting here.
Here we go. So here we go. I got it right here for you. So here's the 15 finalists this year. There's some names that jump out at me, but there's a lot of names that feel utterly borderline to me. And I don't want to say forgettable, but names that I just don't think are Hall of Fame when I think about them.
Sure.
But let's go through the names just so that you can hear it. DeMarcus Ware.
Before we go on too far with this, do you just want, like, in the background as you say this, just an up or down, yes or no, and then we'll get into it?
Sure. I like that. DeMarcus Ware.
Yes.
Andre Johnson.
No.
Devin Hester.
Yes.
Patrick Willis.
Yes.
Sam Mills.
No.
Zach Thomas.
No.
Jared Allen.
Yes.
Of course you were going to say yes. Come on. You're such a fraud. Anyway, continuing on. I was going to say, if you would have said no, they would have just taken your purple card away from you. Such bullshit. Anyway, Richard Seymour.
Yes.
Bryant Young.
No.
Zach's guy, Leroy Butler.
Yes.
Your guy, Reggie Wayne.
Yes.
Torrey Holt.
Yes.
Rondé Barber.
No.
Tony Baselli.
Yep.
Willie Anderson.
Yeah.
All right.
I think most get in, but I don't think they all get in this year.
Obviously not. I think that they're going to take, 6, 7?
Yeah.
So when you look at the 6, 7, if you think they're going to take 7, out of those names, who goes?
I think first and foremost, it's a crime that Leroy Butler isn't in there already.
Zach said this last year. If you tuned into our pod that we did last year, I think Zach and I did an NFL football pod maybe last year, maybe the year before, I'm not sure. It must have been, would have been last year. I think we did an NFL pod, and I think he said Leroy Butler needed to be a Hall of Famer. So he's on board with that.
He does. I wasn't super familiar with him when we talked about this last year. But I went back this year. I researched it. I learned about who Leroy Butler is and his career. Absolutely deserves it. He's one of the best safeties of all time. Devin Hester needs to be in. Absolutely.
Really?
He's the best special teams player in the history of the NFL. The best. No one. Every time he touched the ball on special teams, it was heart-stopping. I thought he was going to score every time.
Then why isn't Brian Mitchell in?
Great
Brian
question.
Mitchell was a great Hall of Famer. Was a great special teams player for years. Steve Tasker. Is Steve Tasker a Hall of Famer?
When I think punter kick returner, I think Devin Hester. Yeah. I don't think about those guys.
We're going to have to talk Matthew Slater's career when he's done with the Patriots.
Stop it.
Come on. What is it? He's like a 10-time Pro Bowler for special teams.
Anyway. Pro Bowlers are popularity contests. I don't count Pro Bowls. Devin Hester's the best of all time. Reggie Wayne absolutely needs to be in the Hall of Fame.
Let's go through, because I'll tell you who I don't think needs. We can eliminate them right from the conversation. I think.
Sure, go ahead. Let's hear your list.
I think Baselli is an absolute no-go. Honestly, what did Tony Baselli do in this league? He played on an expansion.
A rock solid tackle.
He was an okay tackle. He got hurt all the time. Never played a full season. Was on an okay Jaguars team and went to Houston and never played for the Texans. Never even played. Played 6 years. Not that good. All right. Anyway. Rondé Barber, good, not a Hall of Famer.
I agree.
Yeah, just not a Hall of Famer. Throw that out.
Both he and his brother, I think, are pretty.
I think Tiki, good player, not a Hall of Famer, and that's okay. By the way, it's okay to be a good player, not a Hall of Famer. Bryant Young, again, I think just a good player, not a great player. Zach Thomas, I thought was a pretty good player, not a Hall of Famer.
Zach Thomas, I feel like just played forever.
Yeah, he did. He played forever, but he just he was good. He was a good player.
Yeah.
He was a really good player. Nice to have in the league. Good to have. Nice guy to have on your team. He's like Eric Kendricks. I like Eric Kendricks. Eric Kendricks not a Hall of Famer. Never going to be. Sam Mills. That's borderline for me. Andre Johnson.
He's bubble.
Yeah, Andre Johnson, no. Listen, good receivers, dime a dozen. I need you to be great. I don't think Andre Johnson is great. I think he's good.
I think that if you went back and looked at Andre Johnson's career, he's a top 5 receiver every year that he played, except for maybe the last 3 years of his career.
But at any point was he one of the three? Do you think I'm talking 3 best at his position in the conference?
I absolutely think
an extended period of time
from 2003 to 2007. I would have taken Andre Johnson as a top 3 guy.
Okay, I'll look at that for him.
I'll let Zach chime in if he opposes that for me.
Well, he can send it in on the chat or whatever. But okay. If we say 6, 7, I just kind of threw in some of my thoughts. You say Leroy Butler, absolutely. You say Reggie Wayne, absolutely.
Yes. Jared Allen, too.
You think first ballot for Jared Allen?
Jared Allen almost broke the sack record. When Jared Allen was on the field, Jared Allen was one of the best pass rushers in the NFL.
Would you rather have Jared Allen or Richard Seymour?
I would rather have Jared Allen.
Who had a better career, though? I think Richard Seymour had a better career.
Richard Seymour was on better teams. But Richard Seymour did nothing when he went to Oakland.
He was 100 when he went to Oakland.
I'm just saying. I mean, the back half of his career.
Jared Allen didn't do shit in Chicago or Carolina. What's your point?
Richard Seymour had 7 good years in New England.
Yep.
And 3 awful years in Oakland. And I'm saying that maybe he's more of a product of a good defensive system, where Jared Allen was good when he was in Kansas City. He had the alcohol problems. He went to Minnesota and was good in Minnesota.
Right.
And for the last 2 years of his career, maybe he wasn't as good.
I agree with you that he was great here in Minnesota. He was really, really good here. I don't dispute that at all. So you're going to say yes on Wayne, yes on Butler, yes on Allen.
Yep.
Yes on who else?
Torrey Holt, for sure.
Well, you were hemming and hawing on Torrey Holt, but you say he's in.
Yeah. I mean, you're a part of one of the greatest offenses of all time.
See, I think Torrey Holt's a no-brainer. I think he has to get in.
Yeah. I mean, if Isaac Bruce got in, he has to be in.
100%.
I think.
100%.
So I think he was better than Isaac Bruce.
I agree.
But I think that as much as I compare him to Jared Allen, Richard Seymour, I think, was a cornerstone piece of one of the better defenses in the NFL from 2001 to 2008.
So you got Seymour too?
That Patriots defense was really good.
All
I
right.
don't think he was as big as Vince Wilfork on those defenses.
So that gives you
Right?
5.
I think that Wilfork should have probably been on this list over Richard Seymour. That's just my opinion. But I don't know that he's first ballot, but I want to see Patrick Willis get in.
See, that's the interesting one, because to me, I feel like his career's too short. But because we've already done the Megatron and Terrell Davis Hall of Fame things and the Kurt Warner Hall of Fame things, now I feel like with that the precedent, then Patrick Willis has to get in.
And Patrick Willis, I think if you looked at his career from 2007 to 2014, is there a year where he's not a top 3 linebacker?
He's really, really good. He's a great player.
That's from wire to wire, he's top 3, and that's Hall of Fame material to me.
Yeah, career's really short, but very good. But very good.
I mean, there is someone on this list who's shorter than him.
Yeah.
I mean, just to be fair. I mean, there's someone else on this list who I will concede to you that they probably shouldn't get in, despite my feelings about it, because you know more about him than I do. But
Who, Baselli?
if we're looking,
100%
yeah, I mean,
no.
I'll change my mind. I'll concede to you on that. But if we're looking at that, his career is shorter than Patrick Willis.
That's what I'm saying. Like, to me, there's just not enough work. There's not enough work. Baselli's gotten by on name alone, like just name, but not results.
Sure. I mean, I think that I would say Patrick Willis is my 6.
I would take Willie Anderson over Baselli 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, and then I'd say Willie Anderson probably has to be 7 for me if I'm looking at this list.
Yep.
I mean, that's. Did we count Hester in that?
We did not count Hester. So
All
you got to decide.
8.
So
That's
okay.
8. I'll take Willie Anderson over Devin Hester this year.
Yeah, I don't think Hester can be a first ballot. I don't think so. Like, there's no way. Or has he already been on the ballot once?
I don't think so. I don't think he was on it.
I don't feel like he was a finalist last year. No way. No chance. If guys like Moss have to wait a year, not Moss, but Carter has to wait 3 years. Sorry, you don't get to get in on the first ballot. Sorry, that's not how this works.
And look, just time for me to step on my soapbox real quick. Jim Marshall should be on this list.
Let's talk about a couple of names that aren't on the list, because I do think that's interesting, right? You say Jim Marshall, and Zach's pretty anti-Jim Marshall, so just to kind of make sure fairness in conversation there, he's not a big Jim Marshall guy. But the guy that I continue to be surprised about, and maybe you can help me out with this, is Steve Smith. Like, how does Steve Smith not make this final list? Because wasn't Steve Smith not one of the
personality in the media?
I get it, but he was really, really good for a long time on a Carolina team that never had a great quarterback. Never had a great throw. He put up numbers with Jake Delhomme.
I agree. I don't think he's the only one on this list that's stop it. Stop it.
Zach comes in with Jim Marshall doesn't even know which end zone to go to. Does not a Hall of Famer. He just won't live it down. He's not letting you live it down, Ryan. He just won't let you do it.
I will say that Steve Smith deserved to be in the conversation. I've already said I think Vince Wilfork probably should have been in the conversation. I think he's the best defensive tackle in the last 15 years or so. I really like Vince Wilfork. He was undeniably the best run stopper in the league when he was at his peak. just unmovable. How is Eddie George not on this list? How is he not a finalist?
It's a great question.
Maybe that's my Ohio State bias showing, but how is Eddie George not a finalist? How is he not in the Hall of Fame already?
I'm looking at so this was the 26 semifinalists, Ryan. So these were the snubs that didn't make the final list. So I thought I'd throw some of these names at you. Guys, you mentioned Wilfork, which I think is fair, right? Eddie George is on that list, didn't get there. Robert Mathis. The guy who I continue to be surprised by is Eric Allen. Like, I feel like Eric Allen absolutely should be. I've said that before. Steve Tasker, special teams. Fragile Fred Taylor, which under no circumstances do I think he's a Hall of Famer. Ricky Waters. Darren Woodson. I'm a little surprised Darren Woodson. Hines Ward. These are guys that didn't make these final cuts. Anquan Bolden. These
Controversial take here.
Yeah.
Controversial take. I don't think Hines Ward should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I don't know if he should be either. And that's fine. But I agree with you on Eddie George. I think Eddie George is a Hall of Famer. I think Ricky Waters is fringe. I think Fred Taylor is absolutely not a Hall of Famer under no circumstances.
Right.
Same with Anquan Bolden. I think Bolden's good. I don't think Bolden's great.
No, I can't think of a time.
I think Darren Woodson was great, though.
I don't know if I would have put Bolden in my top 5 ever.
No, never.
Maybe 1 year.
When he was a rookie, he was red hot. Red hot as a rookie.
Yeah.
Never that great after that.
I don't know that I'd ever have put him in my top 5, though.
Yeah. So we're going to watch.
Darren Woodson definitely should be one.
So Steve Smith
and
left off. It's crazy.
I think for some of these guys that it's a matter of time, right? Like, I think eventually Robert Mathis is going to get in.
You think so?
Right. He was one of the better pass rushers in the league at a time when pass rushers were at a premium.
Well, don't you feel like if they make the semifinal list at some point, they're going to get in? Like if they were one of these 20, all of these 26 guys are going to get in at some point, we think? Even Steve Tasker?
I don't know. I don't know if they will or not. And I agree with you. I don't think Fred Taylor should. I don't think Zach Thomas should. I don't think Hines Ward should. I'm not familiar enough with Ricky Waters to make a judgment. But
that guy was a stud.
I never watched him. Never saw it.
Talk to Zach about it. Zach will tell you all about the greatness of Ricky Waters when he played for the Niners and with the Eagles, just so you know. Go watch some 90s football. It was way better, Ryan. It's not even close. Like, go watch some mid to late 90s football. It's way better. It's not even close. Not even close.
I think that I look at the list of guys who were nominated but didn't make it. I think that some of them are going to lose just on the length of their careers that they probably needed to be longer. I think that about Priest Holmes.
Yeah, I think
Priest Holmes is criminally underrated.
Eric Allen might be the opposite. He may have played too many years.
It's true.
Like I think that's what hurts him because he was tons of Pro Bowlers and tons of Pro Bowls, and then like late in his career he was not good.
I don't know why Jake Delhomme and Jeff Garcia are nominated. I don't think they should get in ever.
No, never. 100%. No chance. No, absolutely not.
I mean,
Jeff Garcia sucks.
Chad Johnson should probably never be in the Hall of Fame.
No.
As much as I like his antics.
No, he's not a Hall of Famer.
There's a lot of guys here that I don't think should. Dallas Clark is a guy that I think should be in the Hall of Fame, but he didn't even make the semifinal list.
No. Sorry. Not there for me on that one. I know you want to put all these Indianapolis Colts in the Hall of Fame, but no.
Dallas Clark was the best tight end in football for like 5 years.
No, stop it. Listen, you could put Visante Shenko with Peyton Manning, and we would have been talking about Visante Shenko as a Hall of Famer.
You're kidding me right now.
Seriously, that's the same thing.
It's a joke. You're not going to sit here and tell me that you'll take Visante.
10 years of Ben Utek. He'd have been a Hall of Famer too, right? If he'd have played for Peyton Manning.
Ben Utek played the same offense. He was terrible. He was nowhere near as good as Dallas Clark.
It's because he left his brain on the field one night.
I will take you to the mat on this. Dallas Clark absolutely is.
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely. Absolutely is.
Not over the great guys that played in the like not over Jay Novacek. Not over Brent Jones. No way. He's not better than any of those guys.
Absolutely, he
No.
is. Put any of them.
He's not better than Zach Ertz right now. He's not better.
Are you kidding?
No, he's not. He's not better than those guys.
Zach Ertz. Is this a joke? What kind of podcast are you running here?
It's one that speaks truth to power. It's not one that's full of a bunch of Colts fan line. It's not Colts fantasy land in here.
Are you going to sit here and tell me that you think that Jeff Saturday doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame too?
I didn't say anything about Jeff Saturday.
I'm just moving on. I'm just moving down the list. You're going to tell me that Jeff Saturday doesn't belong
Let's go through the entire. Pat McAfee should be in the Hall of Fame. Oh, let's get him on the list too. Come on.
He played like 5 years.
Hey, but he was on the
whole
Colts.
Offense was great.
Genius. Got to get him all. Maybe we can wind it back and put Jim Harbaugh in the Hall of Fame since we went to the AFC title game once with him.
Man, I'm looking at this list. I am surprised. I am surprised that a guy like Teddy Bruschi didn't get advanced this year.
There's a little Patriots like a little anti-Patriots thing going on.
Oh, you just need to stop.
Listen, if you want to carry a torch for Dallas Clark, he shouldn't get in 100 times in front of Teddy Bruschi. No chance. Zero.
You gotta relax with this Patriots thing, man.
Well, sorry.
You gotta relax. I mean, really.
I've got to relax.
Yeah.
I have to. Yes. Okay.
I will say, in just to balance out the bias a bit, there's no way that Bob Sanders makes it into the Hall of Fame.
Bob Sanders has a better resume than Dallas Clark.
Oh, stop! He was never healthy.
Well, I agree.
And I was a Colts fan. I loved Bob Sanders.
I agree. He was
Bob
never
Sanders
healthy.
Played 100 times out of 100, but he was never on the field.
Well, let's see. Zach comes in with best tight end in the league. Ryan forgets about Tony Gonzalez and Antonio Gates.
I would have taken Dallas Clark over both of them.
That's preposterous.
I wore
that
number
is
44.
Preposterous.
I wore number 44 because of Dallas Clark.
Oh my God. You and I, you know what? I'm really glad we're not in the same studio.
I had a Dallas Clark jersey. I'm not kidding.
I'm really glad we're not in the same place because I'd punch you in the face. Like in the face.
I have always loved Dallas Clark. Dallas Clark's also the reason that I have a John Lynch jersey.
It's kind of an unhealthy thing you have.
Dallas Clark is one of the best tight ends of all time, and nothing's going to change my mind on that. I think he's great.
Wow. Oh my God. Okay.
How are Gary Anderson and Ryan Longwell not in the Hall of Fame already?
Gary Anderson, I think, should be a Hall of Famer. I agree with you. I don't know about Ryan Longwell. Longwell's good, though. Longwell, yeah, you can make a case. You can make a case. I'm fine with kickers. Always seem to take longer. Kickers just don't get in unless their names are. I mean, is Nick Lowry in yet? Or I mean, Jan Stenerud's in, right? But Morton Anderson's not even in.
Reggie Roby's on this list as a punter. Reggie Roby should be in as a punter.
Listen, there's only one punter in. It's Ray Guy. It took him like 30 years.
I'm just saying. We need more punter representation in the Hall of Fame.
I don't disagree. Punting's a position. Punting's important. It's a position that you got to have.
We're devolving a bit here.
Let's get off. Let's move on. We'll get back into this Pro Football Hall of Fame thing when the finalists are introduced, which I think is Super Bowl week, right? Is it
they were already introduced, right?
No, these are the finalists. These aren't the. Right. From there, it goes down to, like they'll cut it to 6-7. Yeah, they'll cut it to 6-7 from this list.
Right, and that's the selection.
And that's the group. That's the group that are getting in, right? And I think they get that. I think they get that for they get about 6-7 over that Super Bowl week. So I think we'll find out.
Do you have a favorite one of like the public announcements? Any ones that you've seen in the recent years that the guy that you saw the guy who you thought should have been in a long time ago finally get announced, and you were really happy to see him get in?
That's a great. I think a lot of these old Vikings have gotten in recent years, right? Whether it was it Tingelhoff? Was it Mick Tingelhoff? I know he passed away recently, but I thought like there were some of these old Vikings that were starting to get in that I was happy for, right? It was good to see some of those guys kind of get in. Not that I watched any of them really play, but it was good to see. Same thing with like Carter was getting kind of pushed around for a couple, 3-4 years before he finally got in, and I was happy for that. And a lot of the guys that I watched, like Randall McDaniel, just happy that they got in. John Randall. Just thrilled for those guys. Those were like the guys that I grew up watching. I knew Moss was going to get in, but I was sort of indifferent on him.
For me, it was Jimmy Johnson. I watching him get told that he was going to get on.
Oh, that was nice.
Was
yeah,
really cool.
those moments, those kind of public things were pretty good.
The other one that got me was Peyton Manning. He's my favorite player of all time. So it's fun to watch him get that announcement too.
Before we move on, you mentioned Peyton. Eli, I asked Zach this, I think, last year, and I think Zach said no, but probably. I think I got to go back and listen to the archives. Eli, Hall of Famer?
No.
He's going to get in, though, right?
So.
Like, he's going to get in?
He'll get in.
But you don't think so?
But I don't think so. I mean, I saw him play live more than once. He's not impressive.
Two Super
He's not
Bowls.
An impressive quarterback.
2 Super Bowls.
Sure, but and look, here's the thing. I've always thought of, if you combined Peyton and Eli Manning into one quarterback, they're probably the best quarterback of all time. Where Peyton was the better pure quarterback. He had all the numbers. He was around forever. Eli was too, but he was around forever. That he played with a couple of teams, won a couple Super Bowls, but he wasn't clutch at all. Like, you couldn't count on Peyton Manning to make the clutch throw at any point in his career. And Eli was, an average, a slightly above average quarterback who started in the league for a long time and, won a lot of games, won a couple Super Bowls, but he was the clutch player, right? If you were to ask me who I wanted, with 2 minutes to go in the Super Bowl to win it all, do I want Peyton or Eli? I'm probably taking Eli.
That matters. I think that matters.
I think so too. I just think, like, body of work, I prefer Peyton to Eli, and I don't think Eli.
Well, I mean, Peyton's better than Eli. I mean, that's not a conversation. Peyton's better than Eli, but right. I think Eli's a Hall of Famer because Eli, first of all, he never missed. Guy played every game, and we're seeing in this league, like this year, your best ability is availability. He's available. He plays. He played all the time, and he never had he had some nutcase, he had some good receivers, but never guys that you could count on, right? You couldn't count on Plexico Burris and some of the guys he had he had some good receivers, never great. Amani Toomer was solid, right?
I guess another question to ask is Odell Beckham the player that he is without Eli Manning?
I'm not.
Does he have the reputation he has without Eli Manning?
I'm not a big Odell Beckham fan at all. I think he's
I know
grossly
but
overrated.
I mean, his record for the first 2 years stood until this year. I mean, that's a record.
That's true.
I mean, it's a good start to his career, but he did it with Eli Manning.
I just think Eli's a Hall of Famer. He gets batted around a lot because he threw a lot of picks, and I totally understand that. That's totally fair. But again, I think
his regular season record like 500.
Yeah, pretty much. But again, you play for a curmudgeon coach like Coughlin, and then you have to deal with Ben McAdoo for 3 years, and then you got to deal with some of the nonsense. Like, I mean, he dealt with some really nonsensical stuff at the end of his career there that really hurt his numbers. I mean,
man, what's Ben McAdoo doing these days?
Maybe he's going to be the Vikings offensive coordinator one day. You never know. That seems like smells like a Vikings move. Hey, we got a coach with experience. We're going to hire him as OC. It's going to be great.
Stop that.
All right, Ryan. We're winding down this pod. We have really been bantering. This has been a good pod, though. I've enjoyed talking with you. New Year's resolutions. New Year's is coming. Do you have any?
Oh, boy.
First of all, do you have like a football New Year's resolution? Something that you're going to resolve to do for this next football season?
Well, next football season, my first and foremost is I hope to be on the sidelines coaching.
That's a nice resolution.
That's first and foremost. I would like to resolve that next year I'm going to be coaching football somewhere.
Get your resume ready.
We'll be working on it. I think that's my football one. Semi-football one, semi-personal one, I guess. I need to take the Vikings less seriously.
I applaud you, my friend.
For the what feels like the 10th year in a row, I'm going to say that I'm going to not hold so personally to Vikings football. It's just the best, man. Yay.
I got to go the opposite way with you a little bit because you say you got to take them less seriously. I have become so laissez-faire that I think I have to resolve as a football fan that I'm either a Vikings fan or I'm not. I must say that like this year I have not watched one full Vikings game in its entirety. Have not. And have not been invested whether we win or lose. I've been indifferent one way or the other. I've watched more Patriots games in their entirety. I've watched more Packers games in their entirety just because they're in prime time more often. So I catch more Sunday night games and Monday night Packer games than I do Vikings games. And I got to decide, like next year, am I going to be a fan or am I not? Am I just going to be this fan of the league and be a Patriots guy and just cheer for the league because I like the league and the league's interesting? Or am I going to recommit my fandom to the Vikings? It's basically, I'm in kind of shit or get off the pot mode with Vikings fans because I'm not prepared to go crazy with this team until I see something, and I invested too much of my youth and I can't do it, right? So I got to resolve, am I in or am I out? And so I'm going to try to figure that out this year. My resolution is to come to a resolution on that. That would be that.
I think that's fair. I mean, it's hard to ask. I think for people who have been disengaged to get re-engaged with this iteration of the Vikings. And I think that changing the coach is probably going to be a good first step for a lot of people. I'm functionally done with Zimmer. I don't want to see him anywhere near this football team after this year, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I agree with you. We'll have to keep an eye on it. I'll keep an eye on that resolution. And then personal just kind of thing is just, again, it's just, we've hit this time of, I really feel like the worm's turned on this completely. Like we're seeing, there's still a lot of fear in the culture about staying indoors and being away from people. And it's made me weird. I gotta tell you, it's weird. I think it's done permanent damage to my brain. Like it's made me weird and anxious and nuts. And I'm hopeful that, have a little more gratitude about things and be a little more appreciative of people and, try to get better at those things. And that's going to be my personal resolution for this year. Hopefully I can be a little better at that and have more of a conscientious plan about everything I do. I resolved to have a podcast a couple of years, and here I am. I resolved a couple of years ago that I was going to do a podcast consistently and stick with it. Here we are. We got our fans. I didn't care if 6 people listened, and here we are after basically a year and a half, Ryan. And we get, hundreds of listens, and we get people from all across the country and the world, and I'm grateful for all of those people. It's fantastic. There you go.
It's good to have a podcast. Good to be around.
Absolutely. So. Good to be heard. Good to be seen. All right, Ryan. Right. Let's get to some of the regular stuff that we have to do. First of all, I know Zach demanded an apology. I got to look back up in our text stream here because he demanded an apology from fans or from an organization. I got to see if I can find it. Let's see if you can vamp for a minute. Let me see if I can find it. Hang on.
Yeah.
I gotta find it. Go ahead and vamp.
No, I was going to say apologies right now. I think that I'm not going to demand any apologies, but I'll certainly offer. Oh, Zach's saying it was Seattle.
Oh, Seattle.
Demanding an apology from the fans because
that's what it was. That's what it was. Thank you, Zach.
That's wild.
He did text. He said the place was empty.
Not show up. Yeah.
Well, there was a foot of snow in Seattle, and the fans just couldn't make it to the game. They all drive Priuses up there.
Well, you know what else it is.
Nobody has a 4-wheel drive vehicle in Seattle.
Most of their fans are still a year or two away from getting their driver's license. All those kids that grew up becoming, I'm a 12th man fan. Shut up, man. You're in 5th grade. You don't know what being a fan is yet.
Well, they just left the Chaz chop zone. They just got out of that. Like 6 months ago. It's a lot for them to think about making it to a wintry football game. I mean, that's a lot going on.
Yeah, you keep your politics to yourself, Tim.
What? I was making a point. That's what was there.
You keep your politics to yourself. Let's not get
There's no politics.
You want to start a politics pod?
No, I don't want it. Not with you. Are you crazy? No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to talk.
I'm the crazy one. I'm
the guy right in the center here. Anyway, no, it's just a joke. They're just jokes. Jesus Christ. You're psycho right now. Look at you in your Warren Democrat shirt. You're the political guy.
It's laundry day.
You're right. It's laundry day 6 days a week because you're always wearing that. Anyway.
I am not.
Always. I think you have 7 of those shirts. Anyway.
I really do. I have like 5 t-shirts.
So, Zach demands an apology from the Seattle fans. The 12th man is a fraud, according to Zach. So, there's that. And
not
Ryan,
wrong.
Did you say you have an apology?
No, I said I don't. I don't have anything to demand. I don't really have an apology. I don't know what I would apologize for.
I demand an apology from I demand an apology from all the people who forced Ian Book to have to get killed, who sent Ian Book to die on Monday Night Football. I think those people all need to apologize to Ian Book because they may have ended his career before it had a chance to get started. They destroyed that poor kid. Unfair. That was so unfair.
Non-football related, I have to offer an apology to Gordon Ramsay because I completely butchered his beef Wellington recipe this week. Did not go well on the first attempt.
You wanker.
I was just a total donut about it, a complete donkey. Like it was just the worst. I did not do well.
Did Gordon?
The flavors were there, the texture was not. It was not baked well. It was undercooked. I was upset.
Gordon would have told you to F off upstairs. Back to
probably
back upstairs.
Probably it did not go well.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Needless to say,
beef Wellington. Come on, you're out over your skis trying to make a beef Wellington. You need to make something a little more yours. You got to. That's listen. You know what that is? In food terms, that's like calculus. That's that you need to. You're not a trained chef.
I was a chef. I have made things harder than beef Wellington.
You have not been to the Cordon Bleu, and here you are trying to do calculus. You haven't even passed basic algebra.
What are you talking about? I've worked in like 10 restaurants.
Yeah, bar and grills. They don't count. They don't make beef Wellington at those things.
I worked in an immigrant's Italian restaurant. I know exactly how to cook. My wife says I make almost as good a meatballs as her deceased nana, who came over from Italy. Like I have the texture down. I have the flavor down. Tim, I am like making
You're sounding Italian as we talk here.
Here.
You're like Artie Bucco all of a sudden. Calm down.
Look, food is an art. And food is meant to be shared. And I messed up the art this week. My canvas was ruined. I've got to try again. I've got another $40 piece of meat sitting in my freezer that we'll try again.
Zach and I are happy to invest. We'll come over and taste test. 100%.
All right, fine.
All right, that's good. I'm glad. All right, let's get to Tito. Did we have anybody who played hard this weekend and lost? Who gave a good effort and then put a team over this week? A surprise performance.
Could we consider the Arizona Cardinals a Tito Award winner this week with that kind of effort they put up against the Colts?
See, I think the Vikings are the Tito, because they're the team that I thought gave the Rams an interesting game, made a little bit of a flurry late, and just put the Rams over at the end. They forced 3 turnovers, couldn't score on any of them.
I think that perhaps the biggest Tito of the weekend might have been the Cleveland Browns against Green Bay.
Yeah, they did too. That was a good one.
They took their beating early and then decided to fight back and nearly came away with it. But
yeah,
just Green Bay's just too much at Lambeau.
Yeah, too much. Like I said, they got a small package roll up late in the match after Tito missed a clothesline and that was it. So nice move.
I mean I would have, going into this week, I thought that the Texans could have been one, and they just ended up outright winning. Stole that one from it really wasn't stealing. They beat the hell out of the Chargers.
The Chargers are frauds, man. The Chargers need to apologize to the league and apologize to their 7 fans.
Yeah, that's probably fair. The Bears beating the Seahawks. The Seahawks put up a good fight and probably should have won that game.
Yeah, both those teams
that's a pillow fight.
Yeah, both those teams stink. Not good.
But first, by the way, we have given a lot of credit to Mike Tomlin this year.
Yeah. I think Mike Tomlin's a good coach. Zach has not. In fairness, Zach hates Mike Tomlin.
The effort that his team put forward on Sunday against Kansas City.
Disgraceful. Terrible effort. Worst performance of the year. Worst performance of the year.
I have never seen a Pittsburgh Steelers team so soft.
One of the worst games of it might be the worst game of Tomlin's tenure. He's been there 15 years. And he's been there 15 years. If
they were to decide to move on, that could be one of the games they point to. I don't think they will. But the point is that it was, that's a disgraceful performance.
The one thing that I think you can point to on Tomlin that I think is fair, and I think Tomlin's a good coach. And look, if he got fired tomorrow, he'd have a job in 5 seconds. Like somebody would give him a job in less than a minute, right? He would not be unemployed long.
Welcome to Minnesota.
Here's the thing, though, with him, and I think this is a fair criticism, that he has got a pretty good history here of players who, because of the loose coaching, the kind of players coach thing, whatever, got a lot of guys that they act like idiots, they act like divas, they screw things up, whether it's Antonio Brown or Juju Smith-Schuster or Chase Claypool or whatever. a lot of knuckleheads in Pittsburgh, like in the last 5 to 10 years, and I think
Pouncy guys. I mean,
I think that says a lot about the coach a little bit, and I think that's fair. And I think Tomlin's a great coach, and I think he's really good at what he does. But I do wonder if the ship is a little too loose, and you don't have enough guys there to hold it together.
I think
right?
that's a fair criticism.
So I think that might be part of the problem. But all right, who do we eliminate? Because I feel like we've got to stay AFC. Don't have a choice.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of wish Zach could chime in here because I'm a little bit lost on this right now. The AFC playoff picture is still so close that I don't know if we can eliminate someone like Pittsburgh or even every time we want to eliminate Vegas, it feels like they win.
I think Vegas is out. No, it's Cleveland. I think Cleveland would be the team.
Cleveland would be the team?
I think so. Like they're 7-8. I feel like their tiebreakers are the furthest.
Let's do this first.
Zach says yes on Cleveland. He's out on Cleveland.
Yeah, they're on the 12th spot right now.
That's a lot to leapfrog.
They've got a bit to overcome, and I think if let me just run a brief thing real quick on how I think these games are going to play out, because I think the Raiders probably lose this week
to the Colts. Raiders lose to the Colts, and Pittsburgh's going to play hard because they got blown out last week. It might be Ben's last home game ever at Heinz Field. I think they're going to play hard, and I think they're going to beat Cleveland. I got a feeling about it. I think Cleveland's a shot fighter. I think they're done. I think Mayfield's too hurt. I think I'm not prepared to give Baker Mayfield $200 million. Like, no chance in hell I'm doing that. But I am willing to pick up a fifth option and see if he can get better. The thing is,
if they win out, they can still win their division.
Right. Yeah.
So
Lamar Jackson, I'm told, is still limping at practice.
Yeah. I mean, theoretically, right? If they win out, and even if the Ravens win a game and the Bengals win a game, or the Bengals lose, the Bengals lose this week to Kansas City, that puts all three teams at 9-8, and Cleveland is the division champion.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
That's a bit of a close call here. We have not left ourselves a whole lot of wiggle room on the eliminator.
We have not, but this is why this is where we got it. You're right. We got blindsided a bit by the NFC East. They got off to such a terrible start. We dropped Philly too quickly, and now Philly looks like they're going to get in. And we're going to get that wrong. Like, we're going to get wrong Minnesota versus Philly. Like, we need that to work out where Minnesota gets in and Philly doesn't, in order for us to go. Otherwise, we're going to miss a team.
Yeah, I think that we could. We eliminated Denver last week, right?
Yes, Denver's out. Denver and Vegas are out.
Okay, so Denver and Vegas are out. Wait, when did we eliminate Vegas?
Like 2 weeks ago. Yeah, because they played they played terrible against. They played terrible against somebody 2 weeks ago, and we were like, "That's it, they're out. They can't overcome."
Okay,
and then they won 2 in a row. So whatever.
Yeah.
What do we know?
Well, what do we know? Yeah, I'll go with Cleveland in that case. Then I guess it's a bit of a far-fetched idea that they win.
All right.
Still not sold on it, but
right.
I'll concede.
Unfortunately, I just don't think we have any. I don't think we have better choices. That's the problem we have. I don't think we have better options. So there you go. They're on their way to the eliminator. Ryan, let's do some power rankings and let's close this year out. I think our top 2-3 teams are probably going to stay the same, although maybe it changes a bit. Who's number 5?
I think for me, number 5, I'm gonna bring them back into my rankings because I didn't last week and I felt bad about it. I'm gonna put Tampa Bay in my top 5 at number 5.
Interesting.
I had Kansas City here last week. I'm gonna bump them up a bit, so I'm gonna put Tampa here. Getting right is easier when you're playing against a team like Carolina that really just is kind of hapless right now. You get the Jets this week to continue to get right.
Boy, that
and
thing
then
is
you close
falling
out the
apart
season
in Carolina.
with the Panthers again. So, I mean, if ever there was a time for Tampa to kind of find their rhythm, right now is the time. And rolling into the playoffs, you're looking like you're going to be the 3rd or 4th seed at this point in the NFC playoffs, and getting what momentum you can is going to be important, and I think they've got the schedule to do it. So.
Yeah, Carolina's just totally imploded. Like they're totally done, finished. My number 5 is I'm going to give Tennessee some love here. I think the Titans proved something to me with that win against San Francisco. They played a horrendous first half. Credit Ryan Tannehill. And credit what they've done. Now that A.J. Brown came back and really played a great second half for them, without Derrick Henry, I think a lot of people thought this team would probably take a slide in the back half of the season. And to their credit, they have hung in there and played pretty well. Tannehill's hung in there and played pretty well. And Vrabel's a good coach. Like, I think that's what we've learned, is Mike Vrabel's just a really good football coach and like knows how to get the most out of his guys. They play a really disciplined football team. Like they play a disciplined game, I should say. And that was a big win. That was a huge win. So I like Tennessee here. I'm going to give them the 5.
Number 4, I've been going back and forth on this a bit, but number 4, I think I'm going to go with the LA Rams here. It really wasn't a super convincing win against a pretty ratty Minnesota squad.
Stafford didn't look really good.
No,
didn't play.
I have some concerns about their ability to play against defenses that can get pressure on Stafford. But I mean, they're in the playoffs officially. I think that they're certainly better than the Cardinals and the Niners. So I'm going to put them at 4 here, but I'm not as confident with the Rams as I am with other picks.
Yeah, and Cooper Kupp he might be the best player, might be the best receiver this year in football. Like statistically, might be the guy. He's had a great season. Number 4 for me, this is where I've got Tampa Bay. I think Tom is ready to get them to the playoffs. I think they're going to win 12, 13 games. They're going to host a first-round game, but they're going to have to go on the road and beat somebody, whether it's Green Bay or they may end up even getting that 2 seed. We'll see, but they're going to have to – they're not going to be able to win it from home. They're going to have to go and beat Green Bay for the second year in a row. It's a tough thing to ask, but – as guys start to get healthy, obviously being without Godwin is going to really hurt. They're going to need Antonio Brown to be exactly what he was last week, and that was really good. If he's that way for the rest of the season, then they're going to be all right. But and they need Mike Evans back too. That's just another piece. And it sounds like there's a chance he plays this week. We'll see. I kind of hope so for the fantasy football championship because I could kind of use that. But that's that. So I got Tampa at 4.
My number 3 team. I'm going to put the Kansas City Chiefs here. They're playing really well. Obviously, they blew out the Steelers this week, but you don't in this ranking with how good the other 2 teams in my top 3 are. I don't think you get that many extra points for beating up a bad team. Obviously, one of the other 2 teams did the same thing this weekend, but I thought that was more impressive than what the Chiefs did. So I'm going to put Kansas City here. Great team. They're in my opinion the best team in the AFC right now. They're playing really, really well. So we'll see if they can hold that, but they'll hold the number 3 spot for me for now.
Kansas City is not my number 3. Dallas is my number 3 team. The Cowboys, to their credit, man, they did exactly what you're supposed to do against a team that's in the shape that Washington's in. They bludgeoned them early. They stayed on the gas. They were aggressive. They were the anti-Mike Zimmers. They weren't satisfied. And they just played so ferociously defensively. Diggs and Parsons. It's weird to see 2 players so young make such an impact so quickly on a defense. But those 2 guys are incredible. And to go along with the guys they already got that were pretty good, right? And Lawrence and Gregory and some of the other players they have. And offensively, it just feels like there's a weapon at every position. You love Pollard and Elliott, but you love Lamb and Cooper, and Schultz has become a pretty reliable tight end. And, they got Michael Gallup, who's like a pretty good downfield threat. It's like, man, they got a lot of guys. I think Dallas is really good. I don't think they're better than the top 2 right now, but could Dallas go to the Super Bowl? Yeah, I think they could. And that's the first time I've said that all year.
Yeah, Dallas is my number 2 for a lot of the same reasons that you just said. But also because it feels like that they're kind of finding that rhythm on offense again, where they're getting the mix of Zeke and Pollard. And they have a chance, like I said, with Tampa to kind of build on their momentum here. You get Philadelphia next week. You've got the Cardinals this week. I mean, there's a kind of, those 2 teams are not great teams, right? I think we're kind of see what Arizona is the last couple of weeks. You can run on Arizona. We've known that since the beginning of the year, but now you can kind of pass in Arizona too. And then Philadelphia is Philadelphia. It's a must-win game for them, but they're just not as good as Dallas is this year, I don't think. They've got a turnover-prone quarterback. There's a whole lot of issues going on in Philly right now, but I think Dallas is my number 2 team for that reason. And I think that they'll probably end up getting that 2 seed in the NFC.
Yeah, and I'll take Kansas City at 2. Just real quickly, same reasons you said. I think they're the best team in the AFC. They've definitely become that in the last 6-7 weeks. Credit Andy Reid. Really credit Andy Reid for kind of circling the wagons and figuring it out and getting those guys back on track. And now, I'm not sure there's a team I think there's teams that can beat them in the AFC, like in a one-shot, one-game thing. Yeah, there are teams that can win, but that list is getting smaller by the week. Like a couple, 3, 4, 5 weeks ago, I would have told you 7, 8, 9, 10 teams were good enough to beat the Chiefs and be the best. Now I'm not sure that there's that many. Like I thought Baltimore was on that list for a long time. I think the injuries and the COVID and a couple of I would argue kind of reckless coaching decisions by Harbaugh, who I really like, cost them some games. And I think that hurts them. The Cincinnati, I'm just not, and the Chargers have fallen apart. Yeah, I think the Chiefs are number 2.
Yeah, and then my number 1 team is probably the same as yours. We're going to go with the Green Bay Packers at number 1.
Yep.
Just doing what has to get done. Winning what ended up being a tougher game than I thought it was going to be against the Browns.
Yeah, those games are weird though, right? Cleveland's playing for their lives. It's cold out. It's Christmas. It's holiday. It's weird vibe. I mean, you ask Anthony Barr. Apparently, that's the reason we lost because the fans dared to show up tired to a game on a holiday. You can kiss my ass. How many times – let me just say this real quick to Anthony Barr. How many times do the Vikings fans show up loud at the stadium and your asses can't even bother to show up on the field and play a half-decent football game? It goes both ways here.
No, I agree.
Bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, it is – it's rough. It's rough out there to be a Vikings fan.
But Green Bay, you're right. Green Bay, they did what they had to do. A tough game, tough vibe, tough environment, cold weather. They won the game.
Is there any doubt at this point that Aaron Rodgers is the MVP?
Yeah, I mean, you can make a case for Tom. I think you can make a case for Jonathan Taylor. I think Rodgers is probably.
Case,
yeah, Rodgers is probably.
Is
I mean, is Rodgers my first pick? Yeah, he probably is. Yeah. He probably is. No question. I think it goes Rodgers, Tom, Jonathan Taylor. And I was making a case for Derrick Henry at the halfway point, and then he got hurt.
Right. I mean, and not a whole lot you can do with the injury there, but it is what it is. I probably think that Aaron Rodgers is the number 1 pick at this point for MVP, and he's leading a team that's going to end up getting the number 1 seed and will likely end up being the NFC representative in the Super Bowl if no one else can step up. Then
right.
They just don't have the same glaring holes that every other team seems to have. So,
and the coach is pretty good. I think
pretty good.
Listen, when you can get into year 3, and I get it. They're like, well, it's pretty easy to coach with Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, yep, you're right. It's pretty easy to coach with great quarterbacks. Sean McVay, pretty easy to coach when you got, decent guys. It's pretty easy to coach when you got, Tom Brady. It's pretty easy to coach when you got all these guys. Sure. But still have to do it, right? You still have to coach it. And you still got to put the game plan together that works. And Rodgers is such a diva that if he doesn't agree with the game plan, I mean, ask Mike McCarthy. Ask how that goes. When Rodgers isn't on the same page with you. Managing personalities and managing egos is part of the job. And LaFleur is showing that he can do that. Like, he's showing that, A, he can put a game plan together. He's showing he can coach with anybody in the league. And he's got the quarterback who is the biggest baby in the world, perhaps, like, on board, doing it in step, in lockstep, in stride with the head coach. That matters. That's good coaching.
Yeah. I think it matters too, but I mean, it's sure, he may come back for another year, right? But how many more years of Aaron Rodgers do you have? And is Jordan Love going to end up being what Packers fans hope he's going to be? I mean, there's a bunch of question marks there.
He's trade bait this offseason. They're going to do exactly what they did with Garoppolo in New England. They're going to find a suitor, somebody who wants a young QB. They're going to get a pick. And they're going to move on.
Do we have an owner's response to this real quick? Is there any reading of the tea leaves here as far as what Green Bay might do with old Jordan Love?
Don't you feel? Oh, go ahead, Zach.
Jordan Love will not start another game unless it's week 18 here for Green Bay. and if they clinch the 1 seed this weekend.
There you have it. So you agree with me on that, Zach, that you think that he would get traded this offseason? Somebody, they'll find a suitor, whether it's Houston, whether it's somebody, and he's out.
Yeah, he says he's gone.
So that tells you where they're going, right? I think they want to offer 2-3 years to Rodgers at the end of the season. Say stay 2-3 years, $30 million, $40 million piece.
Man. I mean, if you can keep making it work, if you can really address everything in the organization that he had an issue with, and he wants to stay. I mean, what more can you ask for if you're a Packers fan?
They do have they're going to have a big cap issue, though, Ryan. You're a big cap guy. You follow this closely. If you got to pay Rodgers a big chunk, and you got to pay Devontae Adams number 1, number 2 wide receiver money in the league, now it starts to become hard to pay some of the defensive guys. It becomes a little harder to pay.
It might make it a little bit harder, but when you're in a championship window and guys know that you've got a shot at winning titles, they're more likely to take cuts and discounts.
It's fair
to get runs at titles if they know that Rodgers is going to stay. Look,
well, Adams is not taking a pay cut. Adams he's going to get paid right now.
Zach's right. I mean, you can extend and restructure. Everybody kick the can down the road 3 years. I mean, the Vikings did that to their detriment, but the Vikings have done that. I mean, the Saints did it. The Seahawks did it. I mean, teams do it all the time when they're in windows. I think that if you're looking at a guy like Adams, sure, Adams might want to get paid, but Adams has an opportunity to get paid in a year or two when Rodgers is gone. He can go anywhere he wants. I think that I'd be hard pressed to think that Adams would want to go play with a lesser quarterback than Aaron Rodgers somewhere other than Green Bay. At this point in his career, when Rodgers is going to be back and the team is moving in his direction, and you have great chemistry with him. You're the best receiver in football. Like there's no reason to leave.
It's very fair. Very fair.
To Zach's point, he's not going to pull an Allen Robinson. He's not in Chicago. Right, he's in Green Bay, and there's a bit of a difference there when you get the G on your helmet instead of the C. And I think guys respect that, right? I mean, they respect the legacy of the team. They respect the quarterback that they're with. It's not Chicago, man. Guys ain't just going to leave because it sucks. They don't leave Green Bay.
Yeah, that's very fair. I can't argue with anything you're saying. It's spot on. Great stuff, Ryan. This was great. Zach, way to battle with us tonight. Hang in. He's not going to pull an Allen Robinson, as Zach says. Close, I guess. There you go. I think I think you're right about that. I don't think he's going to do that. Very, very fun year of pods, guys. I know we're going to be back next week, but next week's 2022. We'll talk about the final week of the NFL regular season. I'm hoping to find my sheet. I cannot find it anywhere back here. I don't know where the hell it went. I'm going to blame my cleaning lady, my wife, or anybody. I cannot find my over-under list, but I'm going to look for it, and I'm going to dig it up and find it so we can revisit that next week. If nothing else, we're going to look back at what Vegas had at the beginning of the year and see how close we were on that. Also set up all the final playoff scenarios and all those final pieces, put it together as we wind down what has been a marathon NFL season, the longest season in the history of the league. We do hope everybody has a great new year. I know that there's some restrictions somewhere, but if you can go out and have a good time, go out and have a good time. Be smart. Do the right thing. And be safe out there, as always, right? New Year's Day. Enjoy the college football playoff, all of that good stuff, and then we'll see you right back here next week for Week 18 of
Dogs.
Of the pod. Go Bearcats. Beat every
Dogs.
Oh, Jesus.
I don't care what happens in the other game. Just beat the hell out of Michigan.
It's funny how you were Ohio State. Now, no, it's anybody who beats Michigan now. Now that's where we're at. Okay.
Fuck Michigan. Get the hell out of here. I want them to lose by 50.
How articulate. How eloquent. Thank you for that.
I don't need to be eloquent. I don't give a damn with the whole state of Michigan. Screw them. Michigan State's losing tonight. I'm happy about it.
Oh, please find us. In this
house, we celebrate when Michigan has pain.
Please find us on all the areas where you get your podcasts, whether it's Pandora, whether it's Apple Podcasts, whether it's Spotify, Podbean.com. As you can see, Tim Podcast at timpodcast.podbean.com. Yes, Zach.
Michigan State is, in fact, not losing.
Aren't they? My stream's behind them. They were down 21-16 when I'm looking at my screen here. It's fine. It's
because Zach is reading Gray Sports Almanac. He already knows what's happened. He's already, he's 5 years ahead of you here. He's got it all figured out.
All I'm saying is this. Nothing else matters to me right now except for Michigan losing to Georgia.
You're such a pain. You should always root Big Ten. Stop.
No,
it.
I don't.
Stop
Everyone in the Big Ten can win, except for Michigan.
That is so.
F Michigan. I want nothing to do with them. I want them to lose every game they play. Don't need them to be strong. Screw them. They suck. I hate them. I don't want them to be good ever. And
seems like a rational response.
I have more respect for Green Bay as a Vikings fan than I have for Michigan as an Ohio State fan. How
about the Detroit Lions or the Detroit Tigers? You
know what? Fine. Detroit sports is a different monster, but they don't have the arrogance that Michigan Wolverines fans have. And by the way, Nate, I know you're going to listen to this podcast when you're working and whenever you decide to tune into this. You're coming out of the woodwork every 10 years that Michigan is relevant. It's noted, friend. It's noted that the only time you ever are a fan of Michigan football is when they beat Ohio State. So for the next 10 years, when Ohio State kicks your ass, I'm going to remind you of that of this year when you were talking stuff the 1 year out of 10 they beat Ohio State. So go Bucks, screw Michigan, get your ass kicked by Georgia. Let's go.
Happy New Year, everybody. From all of us here at the podcast, we do appreciate that. TimPodcast1@yahoo.com if you want to send me an email and drop a line to the guys. You can find Ryan at Sweet Cane Music on Twitter. You can find Zach at Man vs. Game 1. He's tweeting around the clock, I'm sure. You can go find all his material there. You can, of course, find me at Tim Anderson Pod on Twitter. Share us out, subscribe. I would appreciate it. So until next time, for Ryan, for Zach, this is Tim saying keep your head up, and we'll see you.
Welcome back. Your dreams were your ticket out.